I'm Andy Rouillard. I'm the owner of Axiom Men's Grooming Salon and the Wax Academy in Hampshire, and I'm also a member of the Salon System Education team. And I'm really excited today to be presenting this Hot Wax Masterclass for you in association with Capital Hair and Beauty. So, strip wax, hot wax, they both get the hair out for all intents and purposes, but they both do it in a very different way. You've probably got a favourite. I know I have. Strip wax and hot wax are both absolutely essential in any professional waxer's lineup, but I think it's fair to say that many therapists do tend to focus their attention, especially when starting out, on using strip wax, which is fair enough, right? It's faster, it's often easier to use as well, but what that does mean is that poor old hot wax gets relegated to the back of the store cupboard and only gets wheeled out for the occasional bikini line, underarm and upper lip wax. Well, we're here today to change all of that. Hot wax can do so much more than just brows and Brazilians. And if you want to be offering your customers the very best waxing experience out there, you need to be using both strip and hot wax in combination with each other, and you'll soon be the talk of the town for all the right reasons. So today what we're going to do, we're going to strip things right back to basics. We'll start by showing you how to set your trolley up, how to decant the wax and the right temperature settings for it. We'll show you how to remove the wax from the pot, the right consistency for your hot wax, how to prep the skin. Then we're going to run through some application and removal techniques for different parts of the body. And then we'll finish by doing some troubleshooting. And last of all, I'll show you how to make 20 quid in 5 minutes or less. And you can't say fairer than that. But before we do all of that, a bit of history. Broadly speaking, all waxes fall into one of two categories. Strip wax, which is sticky and removed with a paper strip, and hot wax, which sets on the skin and is removed by hand. First of all, strip wax. We're all familiar with this. It comes in a pot or a tin like this. It's warm, it's sticky, it's applied in the direction of hair growth, either with a roller or a spatula. We put a paper strip over the top, the strip sticks to the wax sticks to the hair, and boom. All being well, when we whip it off, everything comes off together. Really great for speedy, fast application and hair removal on large, flat surface areas like the legs, the back, the chest and the arms. You might also hear it referred to as warm wax and soft wax, also gel, cream or honey wax, depending on the texture and the ingredients. But for all intents and purposes, regardless of whether it comes out of a roller or is applied with a spatula, if it's removed with a paper strip, it's all the same thing. It's strip wax. And then there's hot wax, also known as peelable wax, non-strip wax, stripless wax, hard wax, film wax, lots of different names out there. Again, essentially it's all the same thing. It arrives in bags of beads like this, can also appear in like toffee-like chunks, in discs and pellets as well. This works different to our strip wax. Rather than being sticky, we apply it on the skin in thicker layers, smaller areas, smaller strips, and as it dries, it actually shrink wraps around the hair, encapsulate all those little short and curlies, so that once it's set, we then peel it off by hand and the hair comes with it. Fun fact, all waxing used to be carried out with a form of hot wax, although it did look very different to the hot wax that we use, the modern hot waxes that we use today. Back then, essentially hot wax was really just a mix of beeswax and tree resin. And the way that it would work is we'd apply it on the skin, big thick layers, we'd work it up, build it up in multiple layers. We'd use a figure-of-8 pattern to make sure that we scooped up all of the hair. Then we'd wait for it to set and you'd peel it off, and all being well, again, the hair would come off with it. Sounds nice and simple, right? But old-fashioned hot wax did come with a number of downsides. First of all, hot wax being an apt name and hot being the operative word, it was very, very warm to use. Essentially, you only got one shot at it. If you didn't get everything off with the first go, tough luck. If you went over a second time, the risk was you'd end up with burnt bits. Secondly, it was very time consuming. It was quite a fiddly technique to use. You really had to kind of work that hair up into a figure-of-8. You had to wait for it to set and work in smaller sections. And thirdly, as well, there was a very short window of opportunity to get the wax off when it was either too gummy and it would just stretch like chewing gum, or then the other extreme, it would set rock solid on the skin like toffee and become so brittle that you pretty much had to chisel it off the skin to get it off. Also, this is gross, so don't judge us, but back in the day before we knew any better, we used to recycle this stuff. Huh? I don't mean in an eco-friendly, save the planet kind of way. We used to take our used strips, complete with hair and skin cells, whack them in a heater, turn the thermostat up high, and we would sieve the used wax through a mesh so that it got rid of all of the hair. The hair used to get kind of all caught up on this mesh, filter through into a lower chamber, and then we'd have fresh wax ready to use on our next client of the day. Nice. And we did this for years, but like I said, we didn't know any better. Then along came strip wax to save the day. A lot faster, a lot easier to use, and definitely more hygienic. And it's safe to say that strip wax completely changed the face of the hair removal industry forever. And in fact, it's still the most popular method of temporary hair removal in salons today all over the world. But not to be outdone, hot wax is having something of a renaissance in recent years, but it's very different to the old-fashioned hot wax of yesteryear. So for a start, you'll be pleased to hear we don't reheat this stuff anymore. It is completely disposable after single use. Advances in formulations and new ingredients, things like polymers, microcrystalline waxes, mean that the hot wax of today is a lot easier to use. So much like strip wax, we can apply it in a thin single layer in the direction of hair growth. We don't have to worry about that multiple layering and that figure-of-8 pattern anymore. It stays flexible once it's dry, so we don't have to worry about that brittleness and the wax snapping. A lot easier to get on the skin as well, much lower in temperature, which makes it much more comfortable for clients. So all of that makes modern hot waxes the perfect choice for pretty much any skin and hair type, but it is especially good for short and shaved hair that strip wax can't grip. Tough, stubborn or multi-directional hair, so the underarms, for example, or around the navel where the hair grows in a couple of different directions. It's really good for precision work and for shaping. So I'm thinking here of things like intimate waxing, where you want to create your landing strip for the Brazilian, or a client might ask for a heart or a lightning strike if they want to make your life difficult. It's also good for loose or fragile skin, so the inner thigh, for example, the buttocks, the back of the arm, where it's difficult to keep that skin really tight. And of course, sensitive areas like the face, the underarms, and the bikini line. When it comes to waxing contraindications, I found over the years that most things can actually be worked around with a little bit of prior planning or an adaptation to your treatment plan. However, having said that, there will be some occasions when, for whatever reason, you need to refuse waxing for your client on the day. So here are my 4 absolute no-nos for waxing. Prescription retinoids. Retinoids are vitamin A derivatives. They're often used in treatment of acne, but they can also be used in anti-aging skincare as well. They work by speeding up cell turnover, but also reducing the amount of oil that the skin produces, both of which means that it can be more likely that skin will lift during waxing. Prescription strength retinoids such as tretinoin and adapalene come in a cream or a gel form. They're commonly used on the face, but do be aware that some clients, male clients in particular, might also be using them on the chest or the back to be dealing with acne and spots in those areas. Now, to avoid skin damage, if your client is using prescription strength retinoids, it's best to get them to stop using this for at least a week before they come in for your treatment, and that's going to help avoid any skin damage. And in fact, even then, I would recommend doing a small patch test before you go in with a full strip just to see how the skin reacts. You may also be aware of isotretinoin, which is prescribed under the brand name Roaccutane in the UK. Now, this is a tablet, so it affects the entire body. And again, it can make the skin very dry, very fragile and sensitive. And if someone is on Roaccutane, they need to be off the medication for a minimum of 6 months before you do any waxing anywhere on the body. And from my own personal experience, I've actually found sometimes you need to wait up to 12 months for the skin to get completely back to normal. Do not wax somebody who is using a prescription strength retinoid and hasn't had a break period, because you will lift the skin. Sunburn should go without saying. Do not slap hot sticky wax on sunburnt skin. As tempting as it is, even on that dry, flaky stage where you're thinking, oh, a nice bit of wax is going to get all those flaky bits off, you will lift the skin, I promise. Learn from my mistakes. Wait until all peeling has completely healed before you go in with your spatula. Allergies to wax ingredients. There are a few common things that you can check on your consultation form for ingredients that might appear either in your waxes or the pre and post wax products. So the most important things to check for, first of all, nut oils and essential oils. Things like tea tree and lavender, some nut oils as well, which might appear either in the waxes or in the pre and post products themselves. Lanolin, which is the fat from sheep's wool. Some people do have lanolin allergies. It's often used in hot waxes in particular, so make sure you're checking for that. Aspirin, which is chemically related to salicylic acid, which is the active ingredient used in ingrown hair products. And the big one, sticking plasters. So if a client's allergic to sticking plasters, the chances are it's the colophony or the rosin, which is in the adhesive of sticking plasters, and it's derived from pine sap. So if your client has an allergy to any of these things and you're using a natural rosin wax, chances are your client is going to have a reaction to that. So you either need to do a patch test or switch to a product that is using a synthetic resin wax instead. And finally, a client who won't fill out a consultation form. Bit of an odd one here, but it's a massive red flag. If a client will not fill out an intake form, do not wax them. No righty, no waxy. They are not getting their hair removed today. If something goes wrong, the first thing your insurance company is going to ask for is a copy of that intake form. If you haven't got one, you're not covered. It's not worth the risk. I've waffled on enough. That's your short-potted history of hot wax. Let's do some waxing. But first things first, I'll show you how to set your workstation up. When you have a full day of waxing ahead of you, I like to work with both strip and hot wax, which means I can wax anyone and anything that comes through my door. So you want to have both on the go at the same time. You don't want to be kind of wasting time waiting for your hot wax to heat up just because you've got someone coming in for an underarm wax, for example. Have both waxes on the go so that they're ready at all times for you. If you've got a dual heater, that is the perfect solution because you'll have one chamber for your strip wax and one chamber for your hot wax, or you could get yourself a couple of the single heaters like this, but either way you want to have both on the go. So we're going to set our heaters up for the day today. This is our hot wax. It comes in bags of beads, so we tear the top off and then we decant it into the heater. So in the Salon System heaters, this will go into the large chamber here. Don't empty your wax beads directly into the pot without this chamber, and this chamber is removable, but don't put it straight into there because you'll ruin your heater. So it always needs to go into an inner container. If you want to have it in the smaller container, you can get these disposable inner liners that can go in like that, and then you can just empty your beads in there as well. I prefer to have the small side for my strip wax, so we're going to pop our strip wax into there, put the lid back on while that warms up. And your temperature settings on the Salon System heater, roughly number 5 for your hot wax and number 6 for your strip wax. If you have a timer, the great thing about these dual digital heaters is that they remember the last temperature setting that you use. And I'm one of these people that lights my bed in the morning. So I have my heaters on a timer. It comes on an hour before I come into the salon in the morning. That way the wax is perfectly melted and ready for me to start my day. Our heaters have been doing their job. Our waxes are melted and ready to go. Little tip for you, keep the lid on your heater when you're not using the wax. It ensures that your wax melts more evenly and quicker as well. Also stops things getting in there. And if you have got the air conditioning on during the summer or it's cold weather, you'll find that leaving the lid on also just helps it melt down more evenly as well. Otherwise you'll end up with a bit of a film on the top of the wax from the aircon from the cold weather. If that does happen, don't worry, just stick a spatula in, give it a stir to bring all of the melted wax up to the top. You can speed heat your wax, so we've let these reach their temperature over the space of an hour. Like I said, I have a timer on mine that comes on in the morning, which means it's the perfect consistency ready for me to start work in the morning. You can speed heat your wax, so if you're running late or you forget to put it on a timer or your wax pot doesn't have a timer function, you can whack it up to maximum temperature, leave it for 10 or 15 minutes, then bring it down to the normal working temperature. Give it a really good stir to distribute all of the heat, then leave it another 5 minutes before you slap it on someone's skin. Otherwise, you're going to burn somebody. So just make sure that you don't forget to turn it back down to its correct working temperature. And always test the wax on your own wrist before you slap it on a customer. So these are perfect and ready to go. Your hot wax in the Salon System range should have a runny honey or golden syrup consistency. So you can see it does drop from the spatula, but it's not as runny as strip wax, not as runny, certainly not as runny as water or cream. It needs to kind of have this slow drop from the spatula. This is the perfect working consistency. Runny honey, golden syrup. Test the temperature on yourself. So the way that we get this wax out of the pot, we're going to scoop the wax out with our stick. So don't dip it in like you do with strip wax, because then you just end up with a whole load of wax on both sides of the spatula, and that's really, really wasteful. You want to scoop the wax out of the pot, like you're getting yogurt out of a pot with a spoon. So scoop, and that way you'll see it's like a matchstick. The wax is on one side of the spatula there, and then we're going to apply this, test this on our own wrist, our own inner arm, to make sure that it's the right working temperature. That's absolutely perfect, and we're ready to go then with some actual waxing on real life models. Our wax is ready, our client is ready. We're going to start by demoing a couple of application techniques. I'm going to be working on a relatively hair-free area here. It's just to show you how to get the wax on efficiently and off nice and comfortably. So we're going to start by prepping the skin. So we've got our Just Wax Expert Serum Cleanser here. So we're going to apply this with a cotton pad. This is going to feel cold. Let your clients know when you put the cleanser on what it's going to feel like. If you're going to slap a freezing cold cleanser all over the skin and your client's not expecting it, they're going to jump off the table. So just let them know before you start. Now you're also going to apply a barrier onto the skin as well. So the barrier that you use will depend on the client's skin type and the weather as well. So if the client is hot and sweaty, if it's a hot summer's day, you could use a little bit of powder on the skin to provide a bit of a barrier between the wax and the skin, also to soak up some of that excess perspiration. That moisture makes the wax grip the hairs a little bit more effectively. If, on the other hand, the client's skin is dry, dehydrated, very tan skin, for example, I'm thinking kind of Donatella Versace kind of tan skin, then you might want to use a little bit of oil instead. Also on fragile areas, delicate areas, sensitive areas like the underarms, the intimate area, then you can use a little bit of oil, and that just creates a lipid barrier between the client's skin and the wax. It makes removal that much more comfortable and easy for the customer because it prevents it from sticking to the skin quite so much. So with Daryl's skin, his skin is actually in really, really good condition. And because we've used the Just Wax Expert Serum, that has skin conditioners in it anyway. So we don't actually need anything extra for Daryl's skin here at the moment. But you will see me using the oil and the powder when we come to do his underarms, when we do his chest and other areas later. So we're going to get our wax out of the pot now. So as I showed you earlier, we're going to scoop this out of the pot, imagining we're getting yogurt out of a pot with a spoon, easiest way to think of it. And when we're doing small areas or when we want precision work, we're going to hold the spatula like a paintbrush and we're going to paint the wax onto the skin. So that's a really good technique for the underarms, if you're doing the upper lip, doing eyebrows, intimate waxing, anything that needs precision, or if you're working in a smaller area, that's going to be your technique. We call it the paintbrush technique. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that. We scoop a ball of wax onto the tip of our spatula. Just turn your stick to break those strings, and I'm going to use the tip of the stick and I'm going to paint in one smooth motion in the direction of hair growth until I've covered everything that I want to. You could also do a little U-turn at the end there to create your lip, and you'll notice I'm waving the spatula there as well. That just breaks any strings from the polymers in the wax. What you want is you want a nice even application, firm pressure with your spatula. If the wax is too thick, it's going to take longer to set. If it's too thin, it could potentially break when you come to remove it. So you want a nice even application, clean edges, and that lip for removal when you're ready. So this will take about 10 seconds to set. Once it's ready to come off, you're going to stretch the skin. If you've got a nice clean lip like this, you just lift the edge with your finger and thumb like so, and then just remove it exactly like you would do with strip wax in the opposite direction to application. So in other words, against the direction of hair growth. I'm going to show you that another couple of times. So we're going to scoop a ball of wax out onto the tip of our stick, paint 1, 2, 3 just to smooth it out. Give yourself a little UE at the end to create a lip if you want. Wave to break those strings. To save time, make efficient use of your time in the salon, you can apply multiple strips so that you're not hanging around waiting for your wax to set on the skin. That way, you're going to be a lot quicker, you're going to get more hair off, you're not going to be wasting time. Just make sure that you do leave yourself a gap between each strip. Stands to reason, obviously, if you get those too close together, you're going to end up sticking your strips together. So a couple of different ways of lifting those strips as well. Like I said, if you've got a nice clean edge, you can just lift it up with your finger and thumb and remove like so. You can also take a recently removed strip, press the hair-free, shiny side into wax that's on the skin. That will stick to the wax that's on the body. Press that into the body and that will just stick to the wax and give you a handle to pull from. You can also use the sticky end, the waxy end of a recently used spatula, press that into wax that's on the body, and the two will connect. They will stick together and lift up like that and give you an edge to pull from. So you don't have to be picking with your thumb and finger, especially if you haven't got a clean edge. That's just one way of doing it. The second way to apply your hot wax is what we call the snowplow technique. So this is quite similar to how you would use strip wax, and it's useful for waxing large, flatter surface areas. So for example, if you wanted to use your hot wax to wax a leg, do a chest, sometimes on the underarm, if there isn't much hair there as well, you can work over larger areas. So with this one, you want to still get just the ball of wax on the tip of your spatula, but I'm doing a slightly deeper scoop there, so I've got more wax on the tip of the stick. And you're going to deposit this on the skin like so, then use the side of your spatula similar to strip wax, and you're going to push that wax over into the hair-free skin like a snow plow. Again, when you get to the edge, if you haven't got a clean edge, you can do a little UE just to thicken that up like so. Wave to break your strings with the polymers. And again, you can apply multiple strips so that you're not hanging around waiting for your wax to set. So deposit the wax on the skin, edge of the spatula to apply like a snowplow. And these will go on thinner as well. I'm just thickening up the edge of my wax there, creating my lip. Once that's set, stretch the skin, lift the edge of the wax, and then remove like you would do with a strip. And again, remember, you can press that wax into wax that's on the body. That connects the two together. Avoid you having to pick, and then you can remove that like so. Now you'll see we've got a little bit of a wax crumb, a little bit of wax residue there. Do not pick to get that off with your nail. That's really irritating to the customer. What you want to do is take a recently removed strip, just pull it apart slightly so it gives you access to stickier, warmer wax underneath, and press that into any little crumbs of wax that might be left on the skin there, and you'll see that just picks them up nice and easily. No need for picking, no need for scratching. If anything is left behind at the end of that, you can clear off with oil or your cleanser at the end of the service as well, but no picking. So just as with your strip wax, when you've finished with your hot wax, you're going to clean and calm the skin down with your after wax products. If you have any little crumbs of hot wax left at this point, you can go in with your post wax oil. That will remove them from the skin if you haven't been able to pick them up as you work. If there's nothing left on the skin crumb-wise with your hot wax, you can go straight in with your cleanser. So we're going to use our Just Wax Expert Cleanser here. Apply it with a cotton pad. This is going to feel cold. Just let your client know again. And your cleanser's job is to cool, clean, and sanitize the skin after waxing. And once you've done your cleanse, you then follow with your post-wax lotion. So again, we're using the Just Wax Expert lotion here. A little bit on a cotton pad and wipe over the skin. And this is going to soothe the skin, hydrate, and it's going to feel lovely for the customer. Protect that skin when he leaves our care. So it's time to do some waxing on some real hair now. So we're going to do some underarms here, and we're going to prep the skin first of all with our cleanser. And this time we're using the pre-wax cleanse from the Berrylicious line, which is absolutely amazing. Smells fantastic. Slightly more watery consistency compared to the Just Wax Expert, but still works in the same way. It's going to get rid of all of that perspiration, any excess skin oils on the skin, any deodorant that we've got here as well. It will get rid of all of that. So when you're working on the underarms, you have a choice of whether you use oil as your wax barrier or whether you use powder. If the client is perspiring quite heavily, if it's a warm day, the skin is very clammy, you can use a little bit of powder, something like cornstarch, for example. You want to stay away from baby powder, right? We're now using cornstarch, arrowroot powder, things like that. Or you can use a little drop of oil. So that's what we're going to use here today. And oil is quite nice for sensitive areas and where the skin is a little bit drier as well, because it just creates that lipid barrier that stops the wax from sticking to the skin quite so much. Makes it more comfortable for the client, makes it easier for the wax to remove as well. So that's what we're going to use here. We're going to use some of our tea tree after wax oil. Don't be fooled by the name. I know it says after wax oil on it, but you can also use it before waxing as well. You literally just want a drop. That is all you need. A couple of drops. Well, don't be stingy. A couple of drops on a cotton pad like so. And then we're going to wipe that over the area that we're working on. And then either use a tissue or the dry side of the cotton to mop up any excess. What you don't want is a whole load of oil slipping and sliding about on the skin, because all that will happen when you put your hot wax on, it's not going to stick to anything. So you want just a really light sheen, just enough to protect the skin when you're applying your wax. So on the underarms, often you'll find here that the hair grows in multiple directions. We've actually got quite an easy underarm to do on this side. Pretty much all of the hair is growing in this direction. We've got a little bit here that's growing up like so, but the rest of the hair is pretty much all growing in this direction. So it's nice and easy. So we're going to grab our spatulas, and I'm going to move this over here because I'm going to use this wax for the underarm. So we're going to go in with our spatula. We scoop, turn, break the strings, and I'm going to be working in sections, smaller, narrower sections here. I don't want to go too wide because we've got quite a lot of hair here. Now, the thicker, stronger, and denser the hair, the thicker your wax needs to be. So, tip of the spatula, painting the wax on in the direction of hair growth. Wave to break the strings. And then we're going to get this small section here. Now, in a salon environment, what you can do is you can have both arms up behind the client's head and be working on both underarms at the same time if you wanted to. Again, that's going to save time in the treatment room, because while we're waiting for that to set, I can be moving over to this side of the body and working on that arm. These waxes do set quite quickly, as you can see, so I don't actually need to do that today. Remember, again, you can press the shiny side into wax that's still on the body. That will lift it up, give you a handle to pull from, save you having to pick the edge of the wax. And we've got that last little section just there to remove. And, you know, if there's hair left, take the time to go back over it and get it, because your client will notice it. Let's be honest, the first thing most clients do after a wax when they get home is take their kit off and have a look in the mirror to make sure that you've got absolutely everything. So if you do miss hairs, they will notice. Again, any little crumbs like that, just press the shiny hair-free side of wax into the skin. It will just lift it off nice and easily. And then we're going to finish with our post-wax products. So again, I'm going in with the cleanser. I don't need to put any oil on the skin because there are no crumbs of wax left. Just a little bit of the cleanser to cool and calm the skin. This is going to feel cold, Daryl. And then our post-wax lotion, again from the Berrylicious line. Smells amazing. It's calming, it's hydrating, it's going to soothe that skin and leave it looking and feeling perfect for our client to get his underarms out for, I don't know, hanging from rooftops, swinging like Spider-Man, who knows. We've seen the paintbrush technique used for the underarms, so let's see that snowplow technique used in an area, a larger area like the lower legs, which is where you're going to be using it a little more often. So with this, you want to take a decent amount of wax on the tip of your spatula, deposit it on the skin, and then pretty much like you would with strip wax, apply in a long strip like so. Make sure your edges are nice and clean, because if they're not, then it will break when you come to remove that. This will set nice and quickly. You don't want to let it overset here because our wax is a little bit thinner. Going to stretch the skin, lift the edge, and we're going to remove in sections because this is a long strip. So we don't want to remove it all in one go because that would be cruel to our clients. So let's see that again. Nice big amount of wax on your spatula, deposit on the skin, and then use your spatula like a snowplow to pull that wax down. Make sure your edges are nice and even. Wait for it just to lose its tackiness. And you don't need to kind of play piano on your client either. Just press it once or twice to see whether the wax is set. And then we're going to remove in sections, bracing the skin as we go. Inner thighs. Obviously, we're used to using hot wax at the top of the leg for a bikini line, but you can just keep extending your strips down to get the hair here as well. Now, this area in particular is one of the most bruised parts of the body on clients, male and female alike. Using your hot wax just avoids that happening because you can keep that skin stretched really tight when you're removing sections. Also, if you've got a client with a fair bit of hair or multi-directional hair like we have with Daryl, again, it just makes sense to use your hot wax just to start those areas off so that you're going to be working in hair-free skin when you come on to using your strip wax. So Daryl, if you can just hold over to the side for us, and we're going to start just with a line clearing a space here, going up the thigh towards the groin area. And we're going to wait for that to set. Once we remove that, we've then got hair-free patches of skin to finish our strips in, which means when we come to lift the edge, it's not going to be uncomfortable. Obviously, I don't want to be picking here with my finger. It's going to be awkward for the client. And also, we're in the middle of hair here. So I'm going to use my spatula. It's going to brace the wax like so. Hold the sticky end of the stick into the wax that's on the skin and lift that up like so. That gives me my edge to pull from. And then I'm just going to pull from there. Then I can move my stretch and go down like so. So we've now got hair-free skin to extend the rest of our strips into. So like I said, we're kind of used to using it for our for bikini line, but you can just carry on with your strips down the leg, apply multiple strips, and this is much more comfortable for the client and easier for us as well, because there's absolutely no risk, or certainly reduced risk, of bruising the client by using this technique. And then we can come back, we can use the sticky end of our spatula just to lift each of those strips up. We don't have to remove them all now, but just get the edge up. Brace the skin really tight, take it up to the edge of the muscle, re-brace the skin and then go over the top, and that just prevents any bruising. So up to the edge of the muscle, re-brace, then over the top. Stretch up to the edge of the muscle, re-brace and over the top. And then we just fill the gaps in. Daryl, if you just hold there at the top of the thigh as well. Perfect. Don't be frightened to get your client to help as well. If it's easier for you, it's going to be easier and more comfortable for the client. So we've tucked a towel, disposable towel, into his underwear to prevent us getting wax onto his pants. So there's no risk of that. Lift the edge up and over. Up and over. Going to use our daisy chaining technique, press that into there, up to the edge and over. We've got one last little bit here, and you'll see the hair actually grows up. So again, we've got multi-directional hair. We had hair growing in, hair growing down, and we've got that last section with the hair growing up. So I can clear that from here. And this means when we turn our customer over, we've got a nice hair-free patch there, a lot easier for us to get the rest of the thigh. Once this is set, you just need to touch it once or twice. If it does that, if your glove sticks to the wax, it's not ready to come off. If you try and remove it at this stage, you can see it's still gummy. It's just going to stretch like chewing gum. Just press the wax back down into the skin, wait another 5 to 10 seconds, and then you'll know when this is ready to come off. This particular wax from Salon System actually changes colour when it's dry. So it goes from that deeper translucent blue to this lighter opaque blue when it's set and ready to come off. So we know that's now ready. Lift and down, and then we can use the shiny side to pick up any little crumbs of wax that are left behind. Remember, no picking. Nobody likes the picking. Daryl has very kindly volunteered his chest for us to wax. This will be quite nice because you'll get to see not only the areas that I would always use hot wax for when doing a chest and stomach wax, but also using the hot wax in place of strip wax as well. So we're going to do the whole thing using our hot wax. So as normal, we'll start by cleansing the skin. So we're going in with our Just Wax Berrylicious cleanser. This is going to feel cold. Just wipe over everywhere that we're working. This gets rid of any perspiration, excess skin oils, anything that will interfere with the adhesion of the wax. Sanitizes the skin, ready for us to go. Now again, I don't need to worry about putting any barrier on the skin here. The skin is in good condition. I don't need any oil, I don't need any powder, so we're just going to go straight in with our hot wax. And I'm going to use a couple of different waxes so you get to see them all in action. So even if you're using strip wax when you're doing a chest and abs treatment, you still want to use the hot wax in a few areas. So we're always going to use it around the navel because we've got multi-directional hair here. So by using the hot wax here, we clear the area Otherwise, using strip wax, if you cross over directions of hair growth, it just doesn't come out. It just tugs. It's uncomfortable for the client. The hair doesn't come out, and it's a whole load of heartache waiting to happen. So we're going to use our hot wax to create a cross around the navel. I'm also going to use it around the collarbone, around the throat here as well, because this is a sensitive area. What you don't want to be doing is putting strip wax over here and then pressing down on the throat to get a good stretch in the skin, because you're going to choke your client, basically. It's going to be uncomfortable, to put it mildly. I'm also going to use it around the nipple area. People get very frightened by nipples. Do not fear the nipple. We're going to use our hot wax in this area. Again, make it much more comfortable for the customer and easier for us as therapists. And then I'm going to show you how to use hot wax for the entirety of the rest of the hair in the chest and ab area. So first things first. We're going to work around the navel here. So I'm going to go in with our multiflex here. Multiflex is great because you can apply and remove this in pretty much any direction and it will get the hair out. So we're going to start about here. We're going to draw our line down to the navel. Create a little bit of a lip there. Wave to break the strings. Creamy hot waxes do tend to be a little stringier than gel waxes. So just bear that in mind when you're using. And then I'm going to go from the waistband up to the navel here. And this in particular is where you've got 3 directions of hair growth going on. You've got the hair growing in from the side, and then you've got the hair growing up from the waistband. So hot wax here is really good because it will clear that hair where strip wax would just kind of get tangled and matted. Then while that's setting, we're going to use some wax around the throat. So hair here, because we're going over the collarbone, again, trying to use strip wax in this area, it would be very difficult to keep that skin tight and to get a good pressure with your rub when you're going over the strip. So again, using your peelable wax here, easier for you and more comfortable for the customer. That was well caught. So we're almost creating like a V-neck here. Again, notice I'm not connecting the strips in the middle. I am leaving a gap. So back down to here, we're going to remove these 2 strips. So we've got a nice clean edge here, so we can just stretch the skin and lift, but we can also use the tip of a waxy spatula, press that in to the wax that's on the skin, and that will just lift it up nice and cleanly without having to pick. So that's now got me the edge of the wax up. Then we're going to remove this in 2 sections, and that I'm going to show you that again in a moment. When you've got a long strip of your hot wax, don't remove it all in one go because you can't keep the skin taut along the entire length of the pull. So when you've got a long section like that, you want to remove it in 2 or 3 sections as though it were 2 or 3 separate strips. Again, here we can just lift the edge of the wax and off. Coming back up to here, stretching the skin and removing 1, 2 in sections. So again, I'm not removing it all in one go because we're working around a corner and we're working around bony bits of the body. So I can't keep that skin tight along the entire length of the pull. So stretch, lift, 1, rebrace and off. I'm then going to come in from the sides of the navel. And although here we haven't really got multi-directional hair, if you use strip wax to remove the hair in this section and you drip it into your customer's belly button, that's going to be fun to remove. Whereas if you use your peelable wax like so, even if that drips into the navel like I deliberately did there, obviously, once that's set, that is just going to lift out nice and easily. So you're not going to be fishing around with your finger or a wax strip and some oil trying to get that wax out. Back to the throat. So we've got hair on the base of the throat here. So I'm stretching the skin. I'm applying my wax up like so, following the direction of growth. I'm not going to finish my strip here. I'm going to bring it over to the side. And the reason I'm doing that, if we were just to bring the strip up onto the Adam's apple, when I come to remove that, I'm going to be pressing on the client's windpipe. And we like Daryl. We want him to come back. We don't want to choke him. So finishing the wax at the side like so just means that you can stretch from the side here. Again, remove, lift the edge and off without putting any pressure over his windpipe without it being uncomfortable for him. Off. And here, because I have dripped it into the navel, I can just press the shiny side of the wax here, press that in, and you can see that just lifts it straight out. Get some sticky wax there. There we go. And off. So I'm now going to do a long strip down from here just to show you that multi-pull once again. So we're coming from the midpoint of the sternum, which is the hair where the hair starts to grow down. And again, this is great to use with your hot wax because we have got a slight change in direction on the chest here. We've got hair growing in from the side and then down the middle. You could get it with strip wax, but because that's such a narrow strip, the risk is that you're going to catch it with your strip wax, multi-directional hair, and again, it's going to pull, it's going to tug, it's going to mat, it's going to be uncomfortable. So using your hot wax avoids all of that. So at this point, I'm going to stretch, lift the edge of the wax, and I'm going to show you removing that in stages. So we remove it a couple of inches at a time, rebrace the skin, couple of inches again, rebrace the skin, and then off. Obviously, in real life, you're going to do that quicker, so it's not uncomfortable for the client. But in slow motion, that's essentially what you're going to do. Okay, nipples. I want to show you nipples. People get terrified of nipples. As I said, you don't need to worry. Two ways of doing it. You can either go straight over, I'll show that on this side, straight over the nipple with your wax like so. Remember, hot wax doesn't stick to the skin in the same way that strip wax does, so it's absolutely fine to do this. If the client has dry skin or it's a little bit irritated, then you wouldn't do this. If it's dehydrated, if there's a little bit of tan skin there, you could put a little drop of oil on the skin again just to protect the skin. Make sure that your wax isn't going to stick to the nipple area. But once this is set, you then just stretch, lift and off, and as if by magic, I mean, that is modern art. You could hang that in the Tate, right? All of the hairs come off, nipple still there, thank goodness. Another way of doing it, and this is handy, especially if your client has a piercing, obviously you wouldn't be able to go straight over if the client had a piercing. So instead of going straight over, you would do one side at a time. So if it was a ring piercing, for example, you'd push the ring down and then you draw the wax around the nipple like so on one side. You'd wait for that to set, you'd remove it, and then you'd lift the ring up and do the same on the other side. If it's a bar, you'd actually do it around this bit. So you'd push the bar over to the side, paint the wax down there, remove it, push the bar back over to the other side and get that bit of the nipple. So you're just working one side at a time. Now we're in the middle of hair here. So what I don't want to be doing is picking too much. I haven't got a really clean edge for me to lift. So I'm going to use the waxy end of a spatula, press that into the wax that's on the skin, lift it up like so, and you can see it's just lifted that wax up, giving me something to pull from without needing to pick in the middle of hair. Wherever possible, your strip should finish in a hair-free patch of skin, but that isn't always possible, especially when you're working in an area like this. Underarms is another area where it's quite difficult sometimes. If there's lots of directions of growth, it can be quite difficult to finish in a hair-free patch. Intimate waxing, bikini line, all of those areas, inner thighs, again, it can be difficult to finish your strip in hair-free skin. So in that instance, you can use this technique. Wax the end of the stick into the wax that's on the skin, lift it up, and that gives you your tab for removal. Now, normally the rest of this I would then finish with strip wax, but we're going to do this with our hot wax, so you get to see it in how to use larger strips. So we're going to deposit our wax, and I'm using the spatula more on the side here and just tidying it up with the tip of the spatula just to get those nice clean edges. Leave a gap. Deposit your wax, spatula on the side, tidy it up with the tip just to get nice clean edges. And you can go all the way up doing exactly this. Deposit, spatula on the side, use the tip to tidy up any edges. And because these waxes contain polymers, they stay nice and flexible. So they're not going to become brittle, even if you leave them on there for half an hour. You could go away, make yourself a cup of tea, come back, and they'd still be nice and flexible, ready for you to remove. So we're going to lift the edge of our wax. 1, 2. We can daisy chain, so press the shiny side of the wax into the wax that's on the body. Again, daisy chain. If your wax goes cold, pull it apart to access warmer wax underneath, and that will just allow you to carry on daisy chain. This is good to see. Where your wax splits like this, where it wasn't quite thick enough, don't keep pulling because that's just going to keep on splitting. Instead, Again, just pull the wax out so you've got a slightly warmer bit underneath. Turn it over and press it into the wax that's still on the skin there. And that will pick it up, as you can see, and allow you to carry on as if nothing had happened. Again, shiny side to shiny side, lift the edge. I've got a nice clean edge that I can use my fingers, and off like so. And then we come back and we fill in the gaps. So the benefit of using hot wax in these areas where we would normally use our strip wax, there's a couple of reasons you might want to do this. Number one, if the client had a very low pain threshold, using hot wax sometimes is a little bit more comfortable for the customer because it's not sticking to the skin as much as strip wax does. The second reason might be if the client had shaved recently, if there wasn't much hair growth, and we've all got those customers, right? You know, we tell them to wait 3 weeks at least after shaving. Not everybody does. And they come in, the hair's really short, and they're going away on holiday. They absolutely need to be hair-free. Strip wax sometimes isn't the greatest at getting those short, stubborn hairs, those shaved hairs out. So in that instance, again, you could use your hot wax. It does a better job sometimes at getting those shorter, more stubborn hairs, recently shaved hairs out. And the other reason might be if your client had very brittle hair. So sometimes strip wax can snap the hair when it's particularly brittle, whereas using your hot wax like this, providing you remove it gently, and by gently I mean like this, in lots of little sections, rather than whipping it all off quickly. Again, if the client has brittle hair, removing it gently like that can just help prevent that hair from breaking when you come to remove it. Obviously, bear in mind, as you can see, it's going to take you longer and you're going to use more product to do a service with hot wax compared to using strip wax. So bear that in mind when you are timing and pricing your services. You absolutely need to charge more if you're going to be doing the majority or the whole of the service with your hot wax. Otherwise, you're going to go out of business very quickly. So again, where the strip is split here, all we need to do is just turn that bit over onto itself, press it in, and it will connect and allow us to carry on removing the strip as though nothing had happened. You can apply the best strip in the world, and sometimes the strip will split. Mistakes happen, that's fine. I've stopped here because actually the wax was applied in this direction. So I'm just going to come back, lift this edge and remove like so. So we've seen our hot wax be used on underarms, legs, chests, places that you would normally use your hot wax. I just want to show you a couple of areas that you may not have considered using it before, starting with toes. Now, as we know, toes can be cold, the skin can be dry. Sometimes with your strip wax, it can get stuck and the hair doesn't come out cleanly. So here's a little trick for using hot wax to get the hair out of the toes rather than strip wax. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a small spatula, apply your hot wax in towards the nail. Ignore the directions of hair growth. If there's lots of different directions, just completely ignore it. Just apply your wax towards the toenail like so. Lift the edge. Don't let it set up completely. Rather than ripping it off in one swift motion, we're going to roll that wax off like so. And what that does, as you can see, lifts that hair away nice and cleanly. The wax doesn't get stuck, the hair comes out perfectly, and you can do the same on each of the other toes to get all of that out. Forearm, a little bit like the back of the knee, this area here on the inside of the elbow, the skin can be looser, especially on elderly clients where it can be a little bit more fragile. If you're using strip wax here, there is a risk that you're going to pop and bruise the skin here. So using your hot wax in a nice long strip just helps prevent that issue from happening, and it's a bit more comfortable for the client as well. So we're going to use our snow plow technique here, where we take a fairly chunky amount of wax, we deposit it on the skin, and then we use our spatula a little bit like we would do with strip wax, just to kind of bring that wax down in a nice long strip. Just create a nicer edge there. Make sure that doesn't split. Good. And I'm just going to stretch the skin, lift the edge of the wax like so. We'll wait another second or two for that to set. And then that is ready to come off. Remove in sections. Bob's your uncle. Fanny is indeed your aunt. So to finish off, as promised, I'm going to show you how to make 10 to 20 quid in 5 minutes, or certainly 10 minutes or less. We're going to do a nostril and ear wax, quite possibly one of the most popular services for your male clients. It's also a great way of getting into male waxing and introducing chaps to the magic of your waxing spatula. It can be performed on a beauty bed. If you have a brow chair or a barber's chair, you can perform it in chair on the shop floor. No need for a separate beauty room. So it's a really great flexible treatment to be able to offer your male clients, and it doesn't hurt, which is weird because you tweeze one nostril hair out and it feels like you're pulling your brain out through your skull, but for some reason you wax them, doesn't hurt at all. So we're going to start with a little bit of cleanser. So I put a little bit of the cleanser on my cotton pad. I'm going to squidge that together so that it is spread around, fold the strip out, the pad out like so. I'm going to wipe that bit around the inside of Daryl's nose. I'm going to put a little bit of powder just on the ears here. That just helps the wax stick a little bit better. And this is just cornstarch. Okay, so we're going to put the wax in the nose to start with. Now, if your client has a mustache or any kind of facial hair, chances are he's going to want that to stay where it is. So we need to protect that hair. Now, if you have eyebrow strips pre-cut, you can just place that over the area and ask the client to hold that in place. But personally, life is too short to be cutting eyebrow strips. So you just take a regular waxing strip, fold it over like so, place that over the mustache, and then ask your client to hold that in place with both hands. I'm going to turn your head slightly towards the camera. Then we're going to take a blob of wax on a facial spatula, and I'm just going to wipe this 2 or 3 times on the outside of the nose, press the nostril shut to squidge it up slightly higher, and then we're going to glue the stick to the outside of the nostril. So we want a blob of wax on the tip of our spatula, not too much, about the size of a baked bean, I suppose. Big baked bean, but nonetheless. And we're just going to hold the nostril, wipe that up from the lower part of the nose towards the tip 2 or 3 times, press the nostril shut, and then we're going to glue our spatula to the outside of the nostril like so. Let go for me, Daryl. So you want to remove this strip while the wax is still gummy, because if you wait for it to set completely, then it's just going to be stuck to the spatula and you're in for a whole load of heartache. So pull this wax away. You might find you need to wrap it around the stick because it will get stringy. And then you're going to chuck that strip away. And I want you to notice the angle of my spatula. So you'll see lots of videos on TikTok and Instagram where people are putting the stick up inside somebody's nose, or worse still, they're using a cotton bud. And there's a couple of reasons why we don't do that. First of all, if you put the spatula up inside the nose, there's a risk the wax will go too high. And the hair that's higher up in the nasal cavity here, that's meant to be there. That's part of your body's defense mechanism. It filters dust and pollen, etc. Stops any nasties getting where it shouldn't be. So we're really only wanting to remove the hair that's in the lower part of the nostril. So doing it this way, we're never at risk of putting the spatula too high in the nose and causing any damage. The second reason we use the spatula like this is because if the client knocks it accidentally, all that's going to happen, it's going to pull the wax out. If you have a stick poking up inside the nostril and he knocks that, there's a risk he's going to impale himself in the brain, basically. So this is a safe way of doing it. And please do not use a cotton bud, because all that's going to happen with a cotton bud is you're going to go and pull it out, and the risk is that the end of the cotton bud will come off with the wax and get stuck up his nose, and then you're going to be fishing about with tweezers or your fingers or goodness knows what, trying to pull it out. So don't do it, despite what you see on social media. So we leave this just a few moments to set, and then we just brace the nose like so at the bridge. We're going to grab the spatula here and pull straight down towards the feet. 1, 2, 3, out like so. Give the nose a little stroke to make it feel better. And look at that. That is what we call delicious. We're then going to do the ear, and you can actually do this while the wax in the nostril is setting, which is what we're going to do on the other side. So let's just turn our client's head to the side here. We've got hair on the tragus, hair around the rim of the ear, and hair just inside the tragus there as well. If your client has curly hair or long hair, what you want to do is you want to try and protect the hair from getting wax on it. So generally what I do is I will hold the ear away from the head like so, so that my gloved hand is then preventing any wax from getting onto the hair. But if that hair is particularly curly or long, sometimes that can be tricky. So what you're going to do is take a paper strip like so, fold it in half, and then we're going to cut crescent out. This will, you'll feel like you're making Christmas decorations back at school again doing this. And then your mum's going to stick it on the Christmas tree for the next 20 years of your life. So you're going to cut a hole in the strip like that, tuck the client's ear in, and that allows you to get all the way around the ear, and it protects the hair at the same time. Cool. So we don't need to worry about that with Daryl. I'm just going to use my hand instead. So my first strip of wax is going to go on the tragus, and I'm going to bring it down onto the ear lobe. So support the sideburn like this, just open everything up and bring it down and around onto the earlobe. Wave to break the strings. The strings are caused by the polymers, so you'll notice when you kind of get to the end of your strip, you get these little strings. Just wave to break those. They break quite easily. And again, we just need to leave that 10-15 seconds to set. Give it a little squeeze to make sure that it's dry. Again, if you stick to it, it's not ready yet. You need to leave it a little bit longer. Just lift the wax like so. Like that. Over and up. And then we're going to do the rim of the ear here. So hold the ear away from the hair, and we're going to apply our wax down the rim of the ear like so. Now the hair here grows in all manner of directions, so it's impossible to follow every single direction of hair growth. So just apply your first strip in whatever direction you find easiest. And for me, that's going from the top down to the earlobe. If there's any hair left over once you've removed that, you can just come back in the opposite direction to remove any stray hairs that are left behind. While that is setting, we're going to put a little blob of wax on the tip of the spatula, like so. Hold the tragus open, and we're just going to apply a little dab of wax here. Wiggle it backwards and forwards to make sure it's all encapsulated, and just press the tragus into the spatula like so. And again, I want you to notice the angle. It's not poking into the ear canal, it's pointing straight down towards his chest. So again, if he knocks that, all that's going to happen, it's just going to come out. It's not going to impale him in the brain. Safe to do it this way. Once this wax on the ear, the rim of the ear has set, lift the edge, remove in stages like so. And then once this is set, we're just going to support the ear from the tragus, and I'm going to pull the stick straight out towards the side. 1, 2, 3. Got rid of all of that little fluff. It's incredible how the wax gets even those vellus hairs out. Thank you for joining us for our Hot Wax Masterclass today. I hope you enjoyed the time we spent together. If you have any questions or comments, please post them in the comments box below. All of the products that we've used today from Salon System are available from your local Capital Hair and Beauty store, and also online. We'll pop the link in the box below in the description. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, all of the good things that you do on social media. I don't know, I have no idea when it comes to social media, but hope to see you on the next one very soon.